This video is about one of the most important questions to ever exist. How can we be happier in life? Now, while those responses were interesting, some of the leading research in the world on happiness gives us a very different picture. The problem is that most of us get so wrapped up in the world's idea of happiness that we lose sight of what actually contributes towards it. That is why we're going to dig a little deeper and understand the psychology behind happiness, why most of us in the modern world are unhappy, and what are some simple shifts that we can make to become happier today. So go ahead, hit subscribe, and let's get started. Now, happiness is not just about feeling good. If that were the case, we would do things that make us feel good and we would be perpetually happy. Happiness has a lot more to do with how our brains process experiences, emotions, and connections. Psychologists break it down into two types. Hedonic happiness, which is short-term pleasure, like eating your favorite dessert or buying something new or watching that meme on Instagram. And eudaimonic happiness, which prioritizes deep, lasting fulfillment over short-term pleasure. The problem is that our brains are wired to chase quick hits of dopamine, which is why we scroll endlessly, we binge watch TV shows, we keep setting bigger and bigger goals, only to find that they don't make us as happy as we expected. Research also shows that we adapt very quickly to happiness boosters, which means that the joy of achieving something like a raise, a new car, a new luxury bag, that seemingly should make us happy fades very quickly the more we get those things and the more easily we get those things. This concept is known as the hedonic treadmill in psychology. This is why, despite living in a world with more convenience, more wealth, and more technology than ever before, people are lonelier, more anxious, and less fulfilled than ever before. This is the reason that while we think that more money will make us happier, once we achieve it, we return to our baseline level of happiness. So this must mean that focusing on eudaimonic happiness or lasting fulfillment should make us happier. But how exactly do you get that deep and lasting fulfillment in the first place? Well, this is what the research has to say about this. According to some of the biggest and longest running studies on happiness, there are 4 distinct things that contribute to humans being happy. The first of which is strong relationships. Now, it might not come as a surprise to you, but when I was researching for this video, I was blown away by the magnitude of how important relationships are. There's this study called the Harvard Study of Adult Development, which started in 1938 and has been tracking participants over an 85-year period. And it reveals that it's not money or achievements, but it's actually strong relationships that are the biggest predictor of happiness and long-term health in people. In fact, loneliness is considered to be one of the biggest impediments or hindrances to living a happy life. One research paper shows that loneliness can be compared to being as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Several other studies have found that loneliness increases the risk of heart disease, stroke. It also speeds up cognitive decline. This is the reason that several countries, including the UK, have appointed ministers of loneliness to deal with the problem. Now, turns out that relationships directly combat loneliness, and they also act as emotion regulators, helping people handle stress a lot better and helping them cope with loneliness and improve their emotional resilience. Now, after this, the second biggest precursor to happiness was found to be physical activity. Now, this one's pretty obvious. Exercising daily significantly improves your physical health and life expectancy, in turn adding to fulfillment and life satisfaction. Studies have shown that physical activity reduces risk of cognitive decline and dementia. But it's not just that. Exercising regularly changes your brain's neuroplasticity. Studies show that when you start exercising, you get a surge of happy hormones in your brain. Now, in the beginning, these are short-term boosts, but when you continue to exercise over a period of time, it enhances your brain's ability to produce and regulate these neurotransmitters, thereby making the effects a lot more long-lasting. As a result, your dopamine receptors also become more sensitive, meaning the brain responds better to natural rewards over time. And when you continue to exercise, it actually reduces the likelihood of dopamine imbalances, which are often seen in people with depression and anxiety disorders. Now, after this, the third precursor to happiness was found to be meaningful work. And this was another result that came out of the Harvard study, that people who found purpose in their careers were some of the happiest people on the planet. Now, this does not mean the highest paying career or the most successful position. It actually means work that provides a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment on a continued basis. And the fourth, of course, is money. Now, for most real-world cases, increase in income has a direct correlation with increase in happiness. But there's a very famous 2010 study by Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton, which found that happiness plateaus at an income of about $75,000 per year. After this, it was found that income doesn't impact happiness as much. Another study, which was conducted in 2021, also shows that income only continues to increase happiness for those who are already happy. But let's look at this realistically. $75,000 is by no means an average number. It translates to roughly about 65 lakh Indian rupees. Now, if we look at Indians, the average middle-class urban Indian household earns between 5 to 30 lakhs annually. That is a huge range in itself. But to everyone on this spectrum, if they reach the number of $75,000 per year, they will be significantly happier. The caveat, however, is that increase in income also comes with a direct increase in the amount of stress. Someone who is able to make 65 lakh rupees a year is significantly more stressed due to work than someone who chooses not to do so. And since increase in stress is directly linked to decrease in happiness, the effort required to make money beyond a certain point diminishes the return on happiness. Now, from the psychology behind happiness and from the studies on happiness, we understand these 6 fundamental things. Cheap hits of dopamine actually reduce happiness over time. Loneliness and chronic stress are 2 of the biggest hindrances to happiness. Relationships are a lot more important than you think. Physical activity changes your brain's neuroplasticity to make you happier. You need to find fulfilling work if you truly want to be happy in life. And making more money will definitely make you happier, but not in the absence of the first 5 things on the list. So how exactly can you put all of this into practice and start becoming a happier individual? The basics stand true. Exercise or move every day, find a way to create impact through your work, and find ways to increase your income regularly. But besides these 3 obvious things, here are a few additional tricks that have helped me become a happier person, and I think they can help you too. 1 is schedule daily and weekly catch-ups with people in your life. Connection is the cornerstone of human life. Research has shown us this. Strong social connections are the biggest predictor of long-term well-being and happiness, and they actively help us combat loneliness. But when life gets busy, you move away, people move away, it can get difficult to stay in touch, to nurture those relationships that are actually helping make you happier. I actually found a neat little hack for this, and I have recently started practicing it. Daily calls with my parents since I live away from home, daily meetups and interaction with my partner, and weekly calls with my friends who do not live in the same city, and once a week, physical catch-up with friends who do live in the same city. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that while you strengthen your relationships, you also need to be mindful of the company you keep. You must have noticed that constantly being around sad people rubs off on you and you feel sad as well. Now, there's another research that shows that emotions have a ripple effect through social networks, affecting not just you, but even friends of friends. This is known as emotional contagion, and it happens through something in the brain called mirror neurons, which make us unconsciously absorb the energy of those around us. So to truly build a happier emotional space, you need to surround yourself with people who are uplifting, you need to be intentional about your environment, and you need to curate what you consume on a daily basis. Choose your emotional surroundings wisely, because in many ways, their happiness becomes your happiness too. The next thing that you should invest time in is talking more frequently with strangers. Now, as somebody who works from home, my interactions are pretty limited. And on most days, I'm very happy with this setting. But some days, I do feel that loneliness setting in, like I want somebody to talk to. And this is where this hack comes in. I've realized that even the smallest of conversations with the cashier at the coffee shop, or the receptionist in my gym, or the parking wale bhaiya in the market, can significantly boost your mood and make you feel a lot more connected to the world around you. The social connection theory in psychology also supports this, that engaging in brief conversations with strangers consistently helps you feel happier. And it doesn't have to be deep, meaningful conversations either. Just small talk works. These micro interactions basically activate the release of oxytocin in your brain, which is your connection or your love hormone, and that increases social bonding, something that's very important for happiness in the long term. The next thing you want to do is strengthen your emotional connection with yourself. Loneliness is not just about the absence of people. It's about feeling disconnected from others, from your own self. Many people try and fix this feeling of loneliness by constantly seeking external validation. And while external connection is super important, like we've established, fulfillment will continue to elude you unless you learn to nurture your inner world. Studies in positive psychology suggest that self-compassion and self-acceptance are the key to better emotional well-being and to a happier life. So instead of fearing solitude or instead of being afraid of being alone, learn to spend time with yourself. Learn to spend time doing things that bring you joy, whether it's things like journaling, painting, reading, taking yourself on a solo date, going out to watch a movie by yourself, going to a salon, getting yourself pampered, things like that. The more comfortable you become in your own company, the less hold loneliness has over you. Another thing that really helps is practicing mindfulness and self-awareness. When you understand your emotions without judgment, you develop emotional resilience. Ultimately, building a strong relationship with yourself reduces the need for external validation and allows you to form deeper, more meaningful connections with others in the long term. The next thing you want to do is train your brain to notice the good. And this is one of my favorite things. This is essentially a way to increase your baseline levels of dopamine. Our brain is naturally wired to focus on what's wrong. It's called negativity bias and it's a part of our survival instinct. But when you constantly keep focusing on the negative things in life, emotions like anxiety peak and feelings of happiness decline. It is, however, possible to train your mind to notice the positives in life instead of fixating on the negatives. Just the simple habit of daily gratitude is immensely helpful here. Right in the morning, start by writing down 5 things that you're grateful for and 3 good things that you notice in your surroundings. And this practice is backed by positive psychology. Every time you acknowledge something good, you reinforce neural pathways that make optimism your default setting. Very soon, gratitude becomes second nature, shaping how you see, feel, and live. The result? You feel lighter, more resilient, and more at peace, and thereby a lot more happier. Next, use the effort recovery model. After loneliness, chronic stress is the other major reason that depletes happiness over time. By keeping your brain in a constant state of fight or flight, increasing anxiety and weakening your emotional resilience. Now, one of the biggest reasons for stress is our inability to rest effectively. I made a video long back on the 7 types of rest and individual needs. You can check it out somewhere here. But one of the most effective ways to counter chronic stress is through something called the effort recovery model, which states that true rest is not just about stopping your work. It means engaging in activities that contrast what is exhausting you. For instance, if your work is mentally exhausting, unwinding with exercise or something that makes you feel creative is a much better solution than just plopping on your bed and watching Netflix. Think of it like muscle recovery. You don't work the same muscle every single day without rest. Why would you do that to your brain? So recover smarter. Set work recovery boundaries, work in focused blocks, log off fully, and then create an end of the day ritual that really helps you unwind. Something like cleaning your space while you listen to music or planning for the next day. You can also use micro recoveries, which are these 5 to 10 minute movement or breathing breaks every 90 minutes of your work to basically reset your focus and to reset your brain. Now, one other reason for chronic stress is the constant mismatch between what we expect in our lives and what our reality turns out to be. This is called the expectation reality gap, and it plays a huge role in our happiness, disappointment, and life satisfaction. And in today's day and age, the problem is that social media often intensifies this gap by showing us only the highlight reels of others' lives, making our own reality seem very dull in comparison. So naturally, cutting down on social media and screen time helps. But one One other way to reduce this expectation reality mismatch is to reframe your expectations by shifting your focus from perfection, like everything must be perfect, to I'll enjoy whatever happens even if it is imperfect. So daily reminders, gratitude journaling, even mindfulness practices like visualization help a lot with this. Another way is to detach happiness from outcomes. So instead of tying your happiness and fixating everything on a particular outcome, like finding a perfect job or, being in the perfect relationship or achieving this next goal that I want to achieve, focus more on being in the present. Again, mindfulness and meditation have consistently known to help people here. Anything that helps you bring your mind back to the present, even if you do it for like 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening, it will significantly change how your brain processes your reality if there is an expectation mismatch. Now, the next thing that I want you to do is hack your brain to remember more of the good times in your life. Most people assume that happiness is about having more good moments overall in life. But research actually suggests that how we remember our experiences plays a much bigger role in how happy we feel rather than the experience itself. Even a long period of joy can be overshadowed if it ends poorly. This is called the peak end rule, which was first introduced by Daniel Kahneman in a 1993 study. Him and his colleagues found that participants who experienced a painful medical procedure but had a less painful ending remembered the procedure as more bearable than those who had a shorter but equally painful experience with a worse ending. Now, this recently happened with me on my Italy trip. It was a wonderful trip, but I am having to constantly remind myself that it was an amazing trip and that I absolutely loved it, because when we were coming back, we made the mistake of booking a connecting flight via Dubai as opposed to a direct flight, and that meant we were traveling for over 24 hours on our way back, and that was just a very tiring, very sore experience, and it put sort of a dampener on the whole trip, despite the fact that the entire trip was absolutely spectacular. And that is what the peak end rule does. It explains that people don't remember experiences based on their duration. They remember them based on two key moments. One, the most intense or the peak moment, whether it was positive or negative, and two, how the experience ended. So the peak end rule offers a psychological hack. If we intentionally end our days and our experiences on a positive note, we reshape our memories and by extension, our overall sense of happiness. And I've done this quite often in life, where I ensure that the ending of anything that I'm doing is on a high as opposed to on a low. So a few things that you can try as well is, one, ending your day with something uplifting. Let the last thing that you do before sleep be something that brings you immense joy, like reading, self-care, meditation. These might seem tough in the short term, but when you continue to do these actually bring you a lot of joy. Just avoid scrolling and Netflix at night. That's just a negative spiral and short dopamine boost, not something you want. Another thing you can do is plan positive endings for experiences. So like a great dessert after a stressful day, we could have planned our return journey back to India from Italy a lot better, and that would have been ending that trip on a high. This way, you're basically hacking the way that your brain stores happiness, and as a result, you end up remembering a happier version of the events in your life. And that perception shapes your overall well-being. Now, one more thing that ties in with the peak end rule is having micro adventures throughout your week. You basically manufacture these positive dopamine-inducing activities throughout your week, and they act as emotional peaks and make you remember your time as more favorable. For most of us, after some time, routines can start to feel boring, right? Wake up, work, meet a few people, repeat. But neuroscience shows that even a small, unexpected change in your routine can trigger something called the novelty response in your brain. And this releases dopamine and makes life feel more exciting. So try a different cafe the next time you go for coffee, take a new route to the gym, or simply switch up your playlist. These tiny shifts break autopilot mode and make your ordinary moments feel a lot more fresh and memorable. This is what main character energy is all about. Now, most people think that happiness is about big life changes like we saw in the Instagram responses. But research proves that it is actually built on small intentional actions repeated over time. strengthening your relationships, moving your body more, managing stress more effectively, practicing gratitude, and finding meaning in what you do. So do not overcomplicate it. Start with one habit today. Maybe it's reaching out to a friend, maybe it's taking a short walk, maybe it's just ending your day on a high note. And then once you get good at this habit, move on to the next one. Before you know it, these small shifts would have created a much more happier you. And make sure you check out this video next because YouTube says that you're gonna love it. And I'm gonna see you guys very, very soon in the next one. Bye.